Welcome to episode 18 of the Be Conscious podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Jaylene McRae. Here we go.
Welcome to the Be Conscious podcast, the show that brings you enlightened perspectives on the frequency of money, life's many challenges, and those heavy feelings that may be holding you back from living your best life. And now your host, Dr. Susan Nicholas.
Jaylene McRae describes herself as a proud Indigenous two-spirit transhuman. As a celebrated makeup artist, performer, and LGBTQ 2S+ ambassador, she believes that it is important to celebrate the power of community by contributing to the energy of our world with passion and positivity. She believes that when we come together for each other, we have the opportunity to inspire and to educate, and that our identities are beautifully diverse and wonderfully unique. Jaylene, welcome to the Be Conscious podcast. Did I miss anything?
No, that sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction.
Of course. You have a very interesting background, and you speak of being a two-spirit transhuman. Can you tell us exactly where you are from? And when I start my interviews, I really like to know who we're speaking to. I like the audience to know who you are. I want to know who you are. So if you take us back to kind of how you began your life and what brings us to today.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Dr. Susan. That's a wonderful way to start, and I think that it's real integral to be able to share where my family originates, because I just found out this past year, as an Indigenous person that was removed from my family at a very young age and then adopted by settlers, I did not grow up with my Indigenous culture. So this past year, I was given the clarification that my family, my maternal and my paternal lines originate from Azegame and Anishinaabe, Treaty 4, and Kawakatus Nation and Métis Nation, Saskatchewan, Treaty 4. And this is pretty exciting for me because of having a lifetime of not quite knowing where I was from was challenging in many ways. So when we come together now in this journey of self-discovery, more is revealed. And I find that now I have an opportunity and responsibility to really connect with my ancestors and also the teachings from the Creator. So along the way, I really am aware of how blessed my life and our lives are, and the fact that this journey gives us that opportunity to continue to grow, to develop new ways to view what our life experience can be. And I did mention that I was adopted at a young age. I also went through a lot of adversity as a young child, not quite knowing where I fit in within my identity, also within my culture. So it really has provided me an opportunity now as an adult to really unpack a lot of different things, to understand sort of what that journey represented for me and how I can best really, in a sense, move forward and experience a life that isn't dictated by what a world told me I was supposed to be.
So, Jaylene, you said that very early on you were taken from your ancestral or your native parents and raised by settlers. Do you have awareness of that? Like, what age were you? Were you adopted at birth or a little bit later on? Can you give us a little context around that?
Yes, I'd love to. I was adopted at the age of 4 years old. So I had experienced some traumatic domestic violence in my family. And so it was, my father had lost his life. And so my mother was in a position at that particular time she was having a lot of challenges being able to take care of me. And also I had an older brother who was 2 years older than me. And so I was 1 year old when my father passed away, and with that came a lot of challenge for my mother. And
Mhm.
so she did the best that she could at that particular time, but then but then I was put into foster care, and then back to her. And it came to the point to where there was a lot of challenge. Apparently, as myself as a child, I'd experienced a lot of upset. So it was determined that I would be adopted, and my brother would go and live with relatives. So in a sense, it's like I look back at that as being this little child who was me at the time, having to go through such. I guess I really passed along to many different environments.
Understood, understood. And where, like, physically on the planet, where did this take place?
I was in Regina, Saskatchewan, is where I was born, and from
Were
that,
you raised there? Mhm. And
no,
were you also raised there? Or
I was
did you move somewhere else when you were adopted?
yeah, I moved to a farm in Saskatchewan, but not there.
Got you, got you. And can I ask, have you kept in touch with your brother?
That's an interesting story because my whole lifetime I didn't have any contact with him, and I did actually connect with him. I guess probably 20 years ago now, where we had a conversation on the phone. My brother had experienced a lot of challenge in his lifetime, and through alcohol and drug addiction. And so it was in my journey of recovery that I was able to connect with him on the phone in a conversation. He has since lost his life to the disease of addiction, and but I believe the Creator brought us together just to connect one more time. And I think when I look back, I think about, okay, so my brother was maybe 6 years old or 5 years old when I was being when we were separated. And I think
Mhm.
about how hard it would have been for him as a little person to have his little sibling be taken away to never be seen again.
Yeah, I understand. And what about your mother? Do you have a relationship with her? Or did you at any point in your growing up as in the adopted family have a relationship with your birth mother?
So this is where I feel such magic in the power of the universe and the Creator, because I had also been able to meet her one time. And I was able to go and fly to Regina, where she was living at the time, and have a conversation with her and sit across the table from her. Now, this is really impactful because my entire growing up, I hadn't seen anyone that I looked like or really connected to per se, and I didn't really bond with my parents to that level. And so when I was able to see this woman that gave birth to me, I was able to look across the table and see myself actually, which was very powerful. And not only
Mhm.
I was able to share some words because at this point I had realized it was really important for me to leave some words to this woman to let her know that I didn't hold any negativity against her. Because I can only imagine as a parent when your child is taken away from you and you must feel so defeated. And so I offered her words to let her know that, I ended up with a family that kept me safe. And even though maybe we didn't connect along the ways in many ways, they did keep me safe and they did instill a strong moral base in me. So the fact that she had the courage to give me up to another family was magnificent, and the fact that I had been able to realize a life of freedom, and she should be very proud of that. And so this was like this moment where we were able to connect and we were able to embrace. And not only that, the mother that raised me drove to meet me there as well. So we all walked in this together. So here I am, all three of us sitting together. And I remember watching as my birth mother embraced the mother who raised me, and they held each other so tight. I'll never forget that moment because I knew that what I had said to my birth mother about the impact of what my parents had provided to me, she was so grateful, and you could just feel that the only way she could express it was through the energy of her deep rooted emotion.
Understood. That's what a very full early life that you had. Can I ask about your relationship with your adopted family? Do you still have a bond with them? And how was that growing up? You said you had a lot of challenges and you didn't see eye to eye on many things.
Yes, that is correct. I think as a child, I couldn't put words to anything. So I didn't understand really what was going on. I was adopted into a neighborhood that was primarily white people, so settlers, and there wasn't a lot of indigenous people. The people that were indigenous were indeed adopted, and the indigenous culture was not celebrated, let's just say. So I experienced a systemic racism. I really felt separated from the group, and I kind of felt like it. I was taught to actually know my place, and the fact that I need to feel grateful for having the opportunity to be able to be in that community. So as a child, when you feel that disconnect, it's challenging in the first place. But also, if you add on to the fact of my gender identity and also my sexuality, which I didn't really know what that was either at that time, but I did know that something was not what they were telling me I should be. And the message I got was that little boys were the ones that liked sports and liked trucks and hunting,
Mm-hmm.
all that those kind of things. And I gravitated towards like dolls and cooking and just those things that generally little girls would gravitate towards. And I didn't understand it, and that was not encouraged for me. In fact, I was kind of punished for it. Actually, there was consequence for it. So I just learned that everything about me was wrong. And I think for
Mm.
the longest time it was like getting through that and that connection with my parents, because they didn't understand what was going on with me. There was no real support in a small community like that. And they did actually take me to a doctor that I now know to be conversion therapy. So they had taken me to a professional who
About what age were you at that time when you went to that doctor?
that would have been maybe in grade 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that would have maybe 7 years old, maybe 8.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember going to that doctor, and it's very vivid to me. And I didn't quite understand what was going on, but the 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 professional was not kind to me. And in the 1970s, I think I need to mention that this is next week I will be turning 50 years old, and I am
Congratulations.
I feel very blessed and actually really excited to say that, because I never actually envisioned myself, you know, actually living, which is sad to say, but
Mm.
I didn't actually think that I would reach where I'm at today. So I get a wave of emotion every time when I think about the reality of what my life represents. So when I went to that doctor, and I was sitting there, and he was shame. They did a lot of shame techniques in the 1970s, and that was a lot of times parents were encouraged. That was a tactic to make people feel like bad about something, and maybe they would make better decisions. I guess I don't understand the logic today, but when I look back, I remember this person putting a wig on me and asking me how I enjoyed that, and
Mm.
as a little child, feeling scared and feeling confused, and not safe. And then there's these little cards they would give me that I would have to um, tell them what my family was, and align the genders with that. So everything as a small child, it was not meant to encourage me to get to know me. It was, in a sense, I felt like it was to trap
So
me.
you weren't, yeah, you weren't encouraged to be yourself or to allow yourself to be. It was to change you in some fundamental way.
I felt like it was to catch me into something.
Mm.
It was just basically, I felt like it was just to kind of catch me. It was like, it felt deceitful.
Hmm. Can I um, go back just a little bit because you've said a lot in the last few minutes, but you said your brother had um, lost his life to addiction, and you are 23 years sober this year, is from what I understand. And can you tell me what that looked like for you? What was your, I guess, vice or your addiction of what were you addicted to? And what was that moment or that time in your life that you made that shift? Whether it was in your awareness or it was, I don't know if it was a dark night of the soul type of thing, where you began this journey of sobriety. Can you take us back to that?
Yes, well, I didn't actually even understand what addiction looked like because when I was at home on the farm and even up to high school, it was like, yeah, I would drink once in a while, but it wasn't really anything major. I basically would keep cocooned in my own room and I would draw pictures and I was really isolated because I knew there was a world out there for me, but it wasn't where I was at. But as I look back and as I have learned my family roots, basically my whole family was ravaged by the disease of addiction, and that comes from colonization. I really truly believe that, and the devastation that my family generations had experienced. Um, um, a lot of abuse. In fact, there's something that I recently learned. My grandfather was given $500 to give up his treaty rights as a First Nation Canadian to leave the reservation. And I look at that devastation and I think about the impact. How is a person supposed to survive on that? That's what your life is worth. And
Mm.
and I look at it, for me, even though I didn't grow up with them, it's in my blood. I am them. And when
I think you've been in my rooms enough, Jaylene, to know that I, say even if we don't have memory in our own bodies and our minds, our soul remembers, and that we carry more than the genes of our ancestors, that we carry the energy of that. And I think that your experience of that shame, of not belonging, of that worth or their lack of, if you will, exemplifies that notion that we carry over more than our genes. We carry the energy of those past generations. What are your thoughts about that?
Yes, I agree with that. And the more I study and the more I'm open and aware to the gifts that other people have been able to help me make sense of it, there really is community in that. And I think that when we open our minds and hearts, we'll be amazed at the people and the gifts of these understandings and these teachings that come to us. And I find that I feel that with my connection with you and with Lady Garland have brought me to a new understanding and a new sense of community. I have a lot of work to do, and I welcome it. But I think that
Oh, wonderful.
as far as addiction goes, I know that when I left the farm and I went to a city, when I found people that were like me, I just kind of like I let go. I actually didn't have any skills though. This is the thing. I was so in my own little world that when I left, I didn't know how to take care of myself. And so I just gravitated
Mm.
towards a group of people that were like me. And I went to a little bar scene in the queer community and they welcomed me. And then I just was, bounced around fearless as a young person. And eventually this is where I started to connect with people within the trans community and the drag community. And I saw I saw performers on stage and I was like, oh, I used to do that in my mirror at home in private. And I was like, "Oh, that's exciting to me," but also it scared me a bit. And so when I started to dress up eventually, and then I started to have the same type of man that used to bully me and be horrible to me was attracted to me.
Hmm.
So it
So that
flipped.
was probably a bit confusing. Yeah. What can I ask you, Jaylene? You said when I saw people behaving and doing things that I used to do privately in the mirror, you said it scared me a little bit. What do you think was frightened you about that?
Well, the more I understand it, that's internalized homophobia.
Mm.
That's what I was taught was that it was a sickness, it was deviance.
Mm.
And so I didn't know any different. And so when I came out and I saw people that were being that,
Openly. Hmm.
yeah, it overwhelmed me.
Can I ask you to clarify for us, how do you identify yourself?
Well, it has changed over the years. I mean, today I identify as
Hmm.
two-spirit, trans human being. I think that actually feels good to me. I'm really aligned with the spirit of
Hmm.
culture, and I love the term two-spirit. And for those who don't know what that is, two-spirit is an indigenous term, and it reflects towards housing the male and feminine energy in one body. And in traditionally in the indigenous culture, these are revered healers and medicine people because they're able to support community at many core levels, maternally as well, to be able to offer the compassion and nurturing aspect that a mother would, but also having the strength to gather the wood and to be able to take care of the land like a father would, in sense. And when you blend the two together, you really are housing a real strength. And when you're able to tap into those energies and be able to share that with service to others, it really is indeed a service.
Wow, that's beautiful, Jaylene. And I love that. I love the two spirit, and I know in the work that I've done, and I think you're aware that I, do conscious rooms on Clubhouse, and started the conscious gender equality room with Lady Garland, and yourself. That I have a particular, I guess, awareness as well, and I love to learn more about it, and I have a great deal of compassion for the journey. I want to talk to you a lot more about your journey. You said to me and our listeners that you've held a lot of identities over the years, but now you've come to this two spirit transhuman that feels good for you. And you also have been on 23 years of continuous sobriety. And I'm curious if there is a correlation of this sobriety with this acceptance of self. But before we get into that convoluted journey, which I'm sure there's a lot of twists and turns in it, I'm going to take a little break. Okay. And we'll be right back to discuss that.
Like what you're hearing so far, make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. How would you describe your relationship with money? Did you ever imagine that your deepest feelings and beliefs about money could be preventing you from acquiring all the wealth that you desire? Click the link below in the show notes to learn more about Dr. Nicholas's highly sought-after Frequency of Money program to positively transform your relationship with money. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
So, Jaylene, before that brief break, we were talking about the journey of coming into this two spirit transhuman identity that you say you feel very comfortable with, and it's very beautiful. Thank you for explaining what that means to us. And this healing journey, you said a recovery journey, it's your 23rd year of continuous sobriety. Can you help us to understand your journey into the two spirit transhuman? Like you said there was a bit of internalized or very deeply held homophobia from your upbringing to coming into this beautiful being that it is you, and how that intertwines with your addiction. The when was that pivotal moment of shift that now you're 23 years sober? And congratulations, by the way. That's a tremendous accomplishment. Can you take us through that?
Yes, I'll do my best for that. It is a real layered story, but I do feel that whenever I have an opportunity to be able to share the message for anybody, that no matter how low you feel, there is always an opportunity to reclaim your spirit. And I feel that when I did go into the bar scene at a young age and find people, I hadn't experienced anything like that before, and I got into pretty quickly, like I mentioned, allowing myself to feel a certain way how men were attracted to me, and that ended up myself making some choices to do drugs and to also then become part of the sex trade, and that was kind of the thing that I kind of fell into. And I'm very lucky that I'm here today because many situations were not safe, and it carried me through a lot of real challenge understanding what that looks like, because I didn't really have a lot of fear or even like this internal, I didn't have a lot of self-worth. So
Right.
I allowed men to treat me a certain way. And I kind of was taught that as well, that, so this whole thing for me was, it was, I feel like I was abused several times sexually, and also but I believe by myself, because I allowed myself to get into situations that were not safe because I didn't have that personal value. And I think over the times, I just would get lost and escape through drugs.
Mm.
And
You
that,
were said early on that you were drinking alcohol, um, at the time that you got into the city and the clubs and the relationships. Was that when that substance abuse shifted to other types of drugs, or was it still alcohol?
well, that was the thing, is because I remember I didn't really like alcohol. So it didn't really happen that much. But when I left, I
Mhm.
mixed that in a party scene. And then, of course, I didn't realize that I believe, I'm not like 100% sure, but I believe I was predisposed towards cocaine addiction. So
Mm.
feel like, because all of a sudden, once I had that, something happened in me, and then I couldn't stop.
When you say something happened in you, can you describe what you think that something was?
It felt like it just took over my body, and it felt like it wasn't new. It felt like
Mm.
it was like maybe have came through my maybe through my parent, and I'm not sure, because I almost felt like it was waiting. It was like
Mm.
it was waiting to reveal itself. That happened for many years, which took me down a line of real devastation, and at a point to where, I lost everything. I was living on the street, and I was in a community of people just getting by day to day, a lot of pain. And so
Mm.
I had, allowed myself to get there, and I actually didn't see myself getting out of there physically, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I was bankrupt. I just,
Mm.
everything was taken away from me, and I literally was maybe 100 pounds, and I don't even know how. And this is where I share the message that there's a power greater than all of us that will guide us if we're open to allowing that,
Mhm.
to be able to do that. And I feel that's what happened with me, is I was guided towards a detox, and then I was taken to a recovery center, and everything sort of fell into place. I could not physically make that decision on my own or mentally, but I was put
Mhm.
there, and that kind of opened up this whole journey of recovery. And at that particular time, I didn't fully identify as a trans person. I didn't even know I was coming in and out of it. I was like doing it because that's how I made money. So I was able to kind of shift, because, like I mentioned, I was also part of the drag community. So it was all kind of like costume put on. It
Right.
had I hadn't internalized it as
Mm.
understanding that that's actually who I was.
Wow. When you were putting on the costumes and you had not internalized it, what who were you? What did you feel like? Or did it matter? Or was it kind of like a blank check? Like there was it was just all a facade? Or but who did you feel like you were at that time? What was going on within you?
That's a great question, because who I felt at the time was closest to I've who I felt like alive. I felt it's so much,
Mm.
because as an artist myself, and I work with many mediums now, but one of them is as a performer, and also I do transform into different characters now. That is one of my strengths as an artist today. So back then, I was
Mhm.
really inspired by seeing that on stage and being reflected in a way that was enjoyed and celebrated by people in an audience, and to be able to see it showcased with the right lighting and costumes, and just how that looked on stage was so interesting and inspiring to me, that I found something that I used to have such shame about, and feel really great about it. And I just thought it was because I was an artist. So when I started to dress up, it was really great. But then all of a sudden I started to get the attention from men as I did that. And I was like, oh, wait a second. And then I didn't understand why I felt so alive when I was dressed up. And now that I look back, it's because I was like inside, this is who I was, and she was trying to get out.
Mm.
She was able
Mm.
to get out on stage, and for the first time, it was like that's when I was most alive and most connected.
But at the same time, it seemed like you had that aliveness and connectedness. You began to have this awareness of like, this is who I am. But it seems like this is also a time of heavy drug use and fear. Who was with you? Like, I know that your family, your birth family was estranged. You had lost your father at 1 years old. Your mother, um, you were with an adoptive family, but that was not a very close knit or supportive relationship or family unit. So when you're out in the big city, when you're performing, who has your back? Like, who helped you to get clean and get you into rehab? Who has been with you on this journey?
That's another great question because I kind of had to start everything alone, like on my own. Like I was estranged from the family that raised me for 20 plus years. So
Mm,
I wasn't connected with them at all. So I had to find an extended family. And that's something that's really powerful about the LGBTQ2S plus community is there are many stories where people lose their connection with the family that raised them because for whatever reason they don't accept them. And the thing about it, when I came into the world, when I found it, I wasn't actually taught up to hold value to diversity, and I wasn't fostered to feel empowered to reveal my best self and realize that anything is possible in this world. I wasn't shared that at all. So when I came into this extended family in the queer community of a lot of, it's like almost the land of misfits. It's like a bunch of people that come to,
mm,
and in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, they had just been going through the devastation of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And so they were losing all their friends around them. So when I came in there and I had nowhere to really connect, it was the drag community that said, "You're okay with us. You're going to be okay." And that's who I
gotcha.
connected with was that I have a drag mother and I have drag children today. And it's just a connection of human beings that let people that know that, it may be hard, but just so you know, you're not alone.
I mean, I'm so grateful that they were there for you. And maybe it's all by divine order. Um, I don't think I've shared with you, at least in my other rooms, but I have a brother who, when we were children, identified as gay and was in the drag community. And so my older brother and I would support him and go to his shows. And, I don't, he's never come into, as far as I know, into the transhuman to spirit kind of awareness of self. But I believe in many ways he was or is and had a very similar journey to yours. So I'm so grateful, Jaylene, that you're sharing this with us, because I think when we share our stories, when we share our life journeys, we do not know who is listening and who we can impact and who we can inspire with our journey.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about this? I'm just very I think I told you, or you may have heard me say that there was a time in my life, very different journey, that I came into awareness, that I began traveling out of my body and I had a conscious awakening, which shifted my life. And some people call it a crisis awakening, but often it comes from this deep, deep place of wanting to know who you are, and why you are here. And I'm trying to get to this in you. Um, can you share with us, was there a day, a night, a specific moment that you can share with us when kind of the light bulb came on, and when you realized that there was something more for you to do, like you needed to be well and sober and here with us, that you were worth it? Like, was there some sentient like moment of shift when you got into that rehab or were helped, or was that a place of like unconsciousness? You said I couldn't have done it myself, but was it was there awareness around it, or not awareness until later on?
Well, to start that off, I have always felt something within me that allowed me to adapt and be projected. And I go back to as a child because I'm able to do that. I used to sit in trees. I used to just be able to go into my space in my bedroom. And I used to surround myself with this kind of like power. And I used to create through art. And I was able to do that as a child. And I didn't have an easy child at all. I was not welcomed in many situations. With friends, I was always on the outside. Everything, I always was kind of like disregarded as this little child.
Mm,
But I was always okay. I had the strength in me to find my own little place, and it was going to be okay because I knew there was something waiting for me. There's something inside of me that said, there is something waiting for you. Just hold on. And I look back
Mm.
now and I realize, like you just mentioned, I actually do have moments where I'm outside my body and I'm able to look at my body and the body that my spirit is housed in. And I'm able to kind of, have that moment of like, I don't understand why I'm separate here, but I'm watching this and I'm feeling it. And I just feel like I've always felt like that. And even when I was in my lowest of lows. And I remember there's this one time I'm going to transparently share to you is I was held at gunpoint by somebody, and I was in something inside of me didn't know what the outcome was going to be. But something happened. I was in a truck, and all of a sudden the truck broke down. And so they had to get out, and there was a cab coming up to get a boost to the truck. Well, I'm sitting there, I'm wanting to say something to the person who's driving the cab. And for whatever reason, I got out because they had to make it look like things were normal. Something inside of me pulled me, and I ran. I ran into this open field. It was on the outskirts of a city, Calgary, on the outskirts, and it was still in residential, but it was on the outskirts. So there was this open field. I just ran, and I was waiting for something to hit me in the back, but there was a power that was
Mm.
carrying me to run, and it never did. And then I think to myself, when I look back at that now, I'm here for a reason, and there's been a few
Mhm.
situations, and I just felt, I felt the power to share that right now because it says to me that there is something greater, and if we can, like you mentioned, we don't know who's hearing this, but I know many beautiful souls of mine, many beautiful people that were there for me when I needed them, and they were taken from this earth too soon just for
Mhm.
being themselves. So I look at it now as the fact that I'm able to stand here and tell you that I am sober for 23 years and to say that this is for a reason. This isn't for me. This is for other people to know that, there's a journey of a lot of people that are no longer here, but they fought for us. And I need you to know their
Right.
stories. I need you to know the impact that we all bring each other and the fact that no matter how low you feel, just realize that we're working towards creating an environment and communities that allow people to express themselves freely with however they feel. And we're going to continue working until every person can feel safe to do that.
Oh, Jaylene, I think that's a wonderful place to to pause. I I as a person that has not had the gender identity journey in life, I just think of all the twists and turns just of living, that doesn't just existing. That I feel like the whole gender question and the whole gender identity coming into self is another layer on top of an art. But life is already difficult. It's already challenging. And you've said it before, and I've heard Lady Garland say it, that you're elders in the community. And I think it's really important for us to mention that this is still difficult. Like, this is still life threatening. This is still a hard fought journey into this awareness of self, for those that aren't the cis heteros of the world. Um, what in your experience, what takes these beings, these two spirit beings, so soon? Is it the addiction type? Is it the lifestyle? Is it things like AIDS or disease? Is it suicide? What, in your experience, what takes the lives of these two spirit beings so soon?
Yeah, that's a deep question there, but I believe it's like they're all were disregarded. They were like thrown away. I feel that.
So there's maybe a feeling, I know we can't speak for people, but do you think that there's a feeling of worthlessness or not, of no value on the planet, and that is underlying a lot of this?
Well, yeah, I do feel that, if we think of children and we think of them being as sponges and they're just absorbing everything around them, and
Mhm.
constantly they're hearing the narrative about people that are in the spectrum of identity and sexuality in a real negative light, and maybe made fun
Mhm.
of it, laughing at it, and inside their heart of hearts, they're just trying to find someone that they can share. Uh, who they are with. And I think about it like it parents. When I think about a little child, the first person they open up with is to their parents, and they see those eyes of the like parents that connect, and they look at them and they ask these questions. And if they're met with like, "Oh, tell me more," I really want to maybe answer this question and help you, then they tell you more. But if they're met with
Right.
this look of disapproval, or it's shifted towards something that is like communicated to them that this is wrong, then they internalize that. And this is just what I feel. They
And they
internalize.
shut down.
They shut
Yeah.
down. They don't share anymore. So they go inside. They don't say these
Mm.
things they really need to say, because they're afraid that they're going to be thrown away, or they're not going to be loved,
Mhm.
and so this is what happens is you get these little children that become very sad when they should be free. They should be open and excited to explore and to try new things. But yet they're so limited with that. I talk about my time growing up in the 70s and the 80s. It's so binary. You have to do this. You have to do that. If you don't do that, something's wrong with you. And this little kid, the creative kid, is just like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here.
You're right, they're outside of the lines. Yes, I understand. Well, Miss Jaylene, this has been an extraordinary conversation, and I'm so privileged to have had it with you. I want our listeners to know how they can reach you and learn more about you. Um, can you tell us your social media handles, if you have a website, anything like that, where we can learn more about you?
Yes, absolutely. So I am on Instagram is one of my main channels of communication, and it is at Jaylene Time. So that's JayleneTyme. And that's also on my Facebook as well and Twitter. But I think that I just want to mention this, Dr. Susan, is my life experience is one that is just like all of us. Ours, it's rich, and it has many points that I think are really wonderful to share. And I really believe that all of our stories are sacred, and humanity really relies on us sharing our experiences and helping each other along the way. So some of the things that we're able to get through, well, how did we do it? So now I feel this calling and this responsibility and opportunity to really be myself. And with that comes the real amazing celebration of the freedoms that I have, of finding out who I am and being able to create a community and a network of people that allow me to reveal my best self, and I the same to them. But just realizing that, I think it's important to stand in our truth. And sometimes that isn't always easy to hear, but I think it's important for people to know that there's people out there. There's nothing that you can say that is going to have people not love you. I think it's just I want to get that message and make it very clear. I'm an entertainer, I'm an artist, but I'm a human being. And I know what it feels like to feel left out, and I know what it feels like to feel alone. But I also know what it feels like within the power of unity. And so, for everybody that is looking for that place to connect, keep searching, because you're going to hear your story. If you reach onto platforms like Instagram, which is magnificent how that's grown, there's also many different groups for every different age bracket to connect. And we talking about aging, talking about, like, for myself now, I'm talking with people about being part of the LGBTQ 2+ community at 50. What does that look like? What did the
Mm.
what did the time through the 80s look like? How did that impact who I am today? So I just say everyone continue to explore. And the more people that go into the environments and focus on the energy that you bring to them, the better we all are, because it encourages other people to stand up for each other, whether it be transphobia, homophobia, whether it be systemic racism. We need to create environments that are safe and brave, and we do that together for each other.
Well, Miss Jaylene, you have graced this Be Conscious stage beautifully, and you have wonderful messages of coming together, of love and support. I want to thank you and our audience for taking this inner journey with us. And remember to always be conscious. If you've loved this episode or if today's message has resonated with you, please subscribe, rate, and review the Be Conscious podcast. I want to know what inspired you and what conscious topics you'd like to hear more about. And if you want, you can share your thoughts with me at info@susannicholas.org. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Be Conscious podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Be Conscious podcast with author, TEDx international speaker, and conscious coach, Dr. Susan Nicholas. Be sure to connect with her to stay up to date with her latest news and works. Learn more about her conscious speaking platform at susannicholas.org/speaking. Stay tuned for the next thought-provoking episode. And whether you are coming or going, looking inside or out, remember to be conscious.